Welcome to the House of Mirrors with your host, Evangeline Beauford, a place where shadows whisper secrets and every reflection tells a different story. Tonight, we draw back the velvet curtain to reveal tales born of ink, bone, and imagination, a celebration of literature and all things spooky. Within these walls, authors gather by candlelight to share their dark creations, stories that shimmer with eerie elegance where reality bends and the uncanny thrives. So step carefully, dear listener, in the House of Mirrors. Even your own thoughts may turn against you. Let the reading begin. Eva's hands tremble as she reaches for the tarnished brass knob, turning it with the reverence reserved for opening tombs. She stands frozen on the threshold, in the exact spot where, years ago, she had seen the horror of birth. Her mother's screams, Ernestine's murmured incantations, and something else. Something watching from the shadows, hungry for new Beauford blood. Thunder rolls across Eva's memory like a dirge. She sees Ernestine's hands measuring dried leaves, chopping and crushing stems, her movements fluid as water, branding horror into her young mind. Flashes of that night emerge from a place she's forgotten existed, from a life she's convinced herself belonged to someone else. At 7, she pressed against her mother's bedroom door, the wood grain rough against her smooth palms. Inside, her mother screams, tangled with a wind that shouldn't have been there. Wind that howled through sealed doors and rattled family portraits in their frames. The clouds had gathered, dark and unnatural, where her mother's labor began. They always did when she carried boys. Miss Ernestine's low voice murmured ancient words between her mother's cries, the words she'd spoken during the last delivery and the one before that. Eva feared that voice and dreaded the storm-dark afternoons when Ernestine would shed her responsibilities as a housekeeper for her ancestral midwife role, climbing the stairs with her weathered leather bag and knowing eyes. The door had cracked open just enough for Eva to see her mother arch against the bed, blood-dark flowers blooming on white sheets, her gown above her hips, her face contorted in pain. Her father slumped in the corner chair, his skin gray and papery, each breath labored as though the air was being pulled from his lungs. With each of her mother's screams, his energy faded further, like something unseen fed on his strength. Miss Ernestine's silhouette blocked most of the view, but Eva glimpsed the wooden box waiting on the dresser, its dark cherry wood polished to a sheen. The same box she'd seen 3 times before, always disappearing into the olive groves in Miss Ernestine's sure grip, as she'd always returned empty-handed. Her mother's inhuman screams crescendoed, and Eva pushed closer to the door gap, catching Miss Ernestine's hands moving with a terrible purpose. Her fingers closed around something small that shouldn't come apart like taffy. And Eva's mind refused to make sense of it at first, the way the tiny limb separated from the shadow, pale and perfect, like her china doll's arm after it had fallen from the nursery window. But china dolls don't bleed. They didn't have that soft, unfinished look, those miniature fingers curled against nothing. The metallic scent hit her first, sharp and wrong, like the day she'd bitten her tongue during a fall, but this was different, heavier, darker. The blood no longer confined to the sheets ran in claret rivulets across the floorboards, catching the lightning's glare. Eva's stomach lurched as it crept toward the door's threshold, toward her bare feet. She'd seen blood from scraped knees and paper cuts, but never blood that appeared alive, moving with purpose. It reminded her of the way molasses spread across her breakfast plate, but molasses didn't steam in the cool air, didn't make the shadows in the corners pulse and twist. The room tilted, the storm pressing against the windows in waves matching the roaring in her ears. Spots danced at the edge of her vision, and her mouth filled with a taste of pennies, although she hadn't bitten her tongue this time. She tried not to look, but watched as Miss Ernestine's hands disappeared again into the darkness between her mother's legs, her father's ragged breathing from the corner catching each flash of lightning, his face a mask beyond fear. Eva's fingers dug into the door frame, splinters pricking her skin, but the slight pain appeared distant, unimportant against the wrongness unfolding before her. This wasn't how babies were supposed to come, not what her mother meant when she mentioned Eva having a baby brother. The blood reached for her, and Eva could have sworn she saw shapes in its movement, like faces forming and dissolving in the dark pools, and her vision swam. The room spun, as if she'd twirled too long in her Sunday dress, but this time the dizziness felt hungry, trying to swallow her whole. Father looked away, horrified, catching sight of Eva in the doorframe. "Come away now," he whispered. He found the strength to stand and guide her from the door. His hand stood against her shoulder, his skin cool as winter soil. But Eva had already seen enough, saw the storm peak as her mother's screams died away, and realized that no infant's cry followed. Seeing Miss Ernestine's face, grim but unsurprised, as she wrapped another still son in black cloth. The candles have burned low, and the final page has turned, but the mirrors remember. Thank you for wandering these twisted halls with us, where stories shimmer and shadows speak. Be sure to follow the authors and check out their books. Until next time, keep your eyes open and never trust the reflection that smiles back.